Let's get started with chain manipulation. With the ability to create bindings, secure and lock down all who get in your way, or become the literal embodiment of restraints, users of Halysikinesis can create, shape, and manipulate chains. Now, this may be really redundant, but we all know what chains are. At least I do. But for those of you who don't, a chain is a connected, flexible series of links made of various material used for the fastening or securing of objects and/or pulling and supporting loads. A user of this power can control, create, summon, shape, manipulate, and use any kind of chains and chain-like weapons they see fit, which includes various types of flails as well. Because, like stated earlier, any interlocked link that connect from one point to another, even if attached to another object, can be considered a chain. The user would also be capable of shaping and combining chains as needed for a variety of uses such as constructs. They can move them with telekinesis or use other chains to move objects. With all those links of info just a jingle and a jangling to and fro, I'm gonna let you guys know that you don't have to worry about Ebenezer Scrooge clinking and clanking up your stairs because he doesn't exist. But what does exist are the rust-laden shackles of ignorance that surround us all about this power. How does one counteract this? Well, a blowtorch would be a good idea, but I have something that's way easier, and that is to hit that wonderful like and subscribe button. But if you get off on literal enslavement and want to enjoy your misery on your own, then at least do me a favor and hit that share button so others can do the opposite. If you're just here for the applications, uses, and users for this power, then skip ahead to this time. But if you guys are ready to break some chains, then insert corny joke here. I don't know. Let's just get on with it. Chains have a very ironic history with humans. Like, literally. And no, not because they're literally made out of iron. God, I'm a loser. I mean, that would make sense, since they've been around for millennia. Whether it's used to pull heavy objects or being feared as a symbol of restricting freedom, it's nonetheless important to, us, and that's why it's getting a video. The first metal chains were used as early as 225 BC. It was primarily used to make various forms of manual labor easier, pulling water buckets, chaining animals, locking and securing things, the whole 9 yards. But from that movement in human history up until, very recently, chains as a concept pretty much stagnated. And by that I mean that there may have been variety, but there was no depth. Long story short, new ways of metalworking emerged that also modernized chains as well. But that's just a brief historical overview of the chain. It's pretty obvious that it has ties into most forms of human mythology as well. For example, in Greek mythology, after Prometheus gives fire to humans against the wishes of the gods, Zeus, that very same god, Zeus, tasked the god of blacksmiths and metalworking, aka Hephaestus, to create unbreakable chains of adamantine. This was then used to restrain Prometheus to a rock or a boulder, whatever story you want to use, where he would then in turn have his liver devoured, blah blah blah, we all know that story. But if you guys want another example, then look no further than Norse mythology, where their mythical chains not only had actual names, no, I'm not going to pronounce them, but they also were created to restrain a giant wolf that had the power of God. There might be a pattern here, but anyway, so let's get the basic stuff out the way. Yes, not all chains are made of metal, especially in our modern era with our fancy technology. Yes, I mentioned that briefly earlier, I just wanted to establish that again. And yes, you guys have no idea about how important the concept of a chain is. Or maybe you do, because it's found everywhere. In fact, it's found even in forms we wouldn't normally classify as a chain, if that makes sense. But, let's just start here. There are at least 5 categories that modern chains are used for: security and restraint, power transfer, traction, lifting and pulling, decoration, and of course, weapons. Go ahead and think about the various chains and they'll more or less fall into one of those categories. And those concepts lead us to our next point pretty smoothly, because throughout our down-to-earth, rule-bound human history, the conceptual shape of a chain is in everything we are and experience. Don't believe me? Let's start small. Look deep inside yourself if you can, down to the atoms that make up your being. Go ahead, get a microscope. I'll wait. I'm not gonna wait. Just take my word for it. you'll find that your DNA molecules are shaped and bonded in linear units, aka chains. In a more literal sense of the word, a chain gang are groups of individuals, or prisoners in most cases, shackled to each other, whether it's with or without actual chains, but they're shackled to each other in a linear unit. Okay, well, those are still visual examples of a chain. So what if you and a bunch of others decide to take turns, passing letters between each other? Heck, you might not even use the word chain in that letter, and you and the person that you're sending letters to might not even be near each other. But as long as you write on the letter and it's passed between you and other individuals in a linear fashion, that can still constitute a chain. In fact, we tend to call that a chain letter. Not to mention, we have an actual unit of measurement called a chain, which is a linear length equal to about 20 meters. So yeah, it's pretty much everywhere. But that's just the real world basis of a chain. So you guys know I gotta hit you with the inverse, an esoteric view of chains, if you will. You guys may have guessed that chains exist in the domain of binding, restriction, and control, and you would be right about that. In fact, the shape of a chain is so primordial and recognizable for humans that it naturally exploits a primal fear, the loss of autonomy, which is why from the past to the present, chains are a prevalent symbol of oppression due to its actual use in the mechanical restriction of a human or animal's liberty. Shoot, the concept itself is so powerful that it can even be used to restrain or depower godlike beings, but that's just the glass half empty view of chains in human culture. A more positive view has them symbolizing interconnectivity and interdependence. And with humans being group animals, I don't need to explain how important those concepts are to survival. But getting back into this concept as a superpower, more often than not, if this power is going to be used or shown, it's going to be done in an improvisational manner. You know, the stereotypical biker weapon or object left around in a warehouse or construction site during a fight. And you pretty much guessed it, it'll be used as a whip or flail in ways that are pretty much impossible to mimic in our real world without years of extreme training or some kind of plot device. If you're looking for something in the same vein as Hellraiser or Todd McFarlane's Spawn character, then you're talking about prehensile chains, or chains that can be used like tentacles. If you get lucky, then maybe you'll get someone who wraps their fist in chains like brass knuckles, or a chain knuckle duster, if you will. But if we look at that realistically, that'll tend to be more painful for the user than the person that they use it on because of inertia. And because there are dozens of varieties of chains, other objects that are included in this power are chainsaws, flails, cranes, anchors, chain whips, nunchucks, and rope darts. Shoot, there are others too, but expect videos on those later. But like mentioned earlier, the main staple of this ability is its power to restrain. So just expect that when a user of this power is presented before you, whether they physically restrain the target or the chain has magical esoteric properties, just expect the target of this power to be restrained. A user of this power can be a jailer, bounty hunter, ninja assassin, some kind of badass biker, thug, or punk, or dressed like a gimp. You know, the leather black bondage suit people. They can even be a supernatural entity that makes a habit out of restraining their targets in horrifying ways. And in a weird way, this ability obviously has range due to being a chain, so it plays both roles of being a close-up weapon and a long-distance weapon. Common stats for a power like this range, but are still fairly static no matter what type of chain is used. So let's try low to medium levels of attack power, low to medium levels of speed, unless augmented by something else like machinery or something, I don't know, maybe magic. Medium to high levels of defense, because that's what this ability represents, security. And lots of versatility because of all the tasks we use chains for and the different types of chains that exist in society today thanks to our fancy technology. Now, I know that the chain family has a lot of variations and associations such as flails, shackles, fetter, or other similarly linked objects, but I'll be using whatever I can to make my point, so just be patient. And while this list may not be that long, spoiler alert, I'll try and get creative with how I show you guys, or with what I show you guys. Now, with the power to manipulate chains comes the natural ability to attack with, defend with, and control chains for offensive purposes via chain attacks. And you know what? Let's just add enhanced flailmanship to that as well. because chains and ropes are the main objects attached to striking weapons when range is needed to be added or included. The user can manipulate outside objects in a push or pull manner through the exclusive use of chains with chain telekinesis. And through this ability, it'll be possible for them to restrain a target because you're wrapping them up in chains in order to move them or prevent them from moving. So let's add chain binding to that as well. Just makes sense. Users on the next tier can generate their own source of chains completely separate from outside sources with chain creation. Well, since you're creating chains and giving them a form of mass and density, let's just go ahead and add chain solidification to that so you can get more mileage out your chains. And with solidification comes the capability to create shapes both simple and complex out of these links via chain constructs. And let's be honest here, if you can do the previously mentioned, then just go ahead and slap chain proficiency, because that's pretty much what you're packing at this point. The ability to be so proficient with chains that it's almost superhuman. Or if it is superhuman, it's superhuman. From there, chain property manipulation allows higher tier users to alter the composition of their chains, giving them enhanced qualities other chains normally don't possess, such as increasing the temperature or visual transparency of chains. For example, you could grant yourself or an outside target the ability to manipulate chains or chain-like concepts. And because this power's theme of binding and restriction, this will normally be portrayed as a curse or a negative status buff, if you will. Or it can give the user a double-edged power-up via chain bestowal. If you infuse chains with the energy that gives you life or surround yourself in chains, that'll give the user of this power a chain aura. Or one could alter their own form and take on the aspects of a chain or chains either partially or completely via chain mimicry. While the best of the best, those that have mastered this ability, or can at least be classified as master level, can infuse chains into whatever combative capabilities they possess with chain combat. And if you want to get around faster, then take a cue from, a chainsaw or a factory conveyor belt and use those interconnected links of power to enhance your movement speed or gain access to areas you normally couldn't via chain locomotion. And lastly, for those that want to push this ability to its natural limits and beyond and stretch over into the esoteric side of change, then they can tap into whatever mystical or hidden powers that chains possess and basically become the Harry Potter of chains with, chain magic. And there you have it, chain manipulation in a nutshell. A popular ability that has many uses, and to be honest with you, most of the applications listed are similar to other abilities I've done, like string manipulation and or vine manipulation. So check those abilities out if you want more inspiration. But like all abilities, this power still isn't perfect. Your chains are only as strong as the material they are made of, so they can be broken under the right conditions. And lastly, the user's own skills, determination, and natural talents will determine how far you go with this ability. So, I know I say this a lot, but get pretty creative. And now, with all that out of the way, it's time to place this ability on the scale. Chain manipulation is pretty dang useful considering how subjective a chain is, or how it starts off being. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, the Shea scaling system gives this power a steel-laced 7. Thanks for watching. You guys think of any more applications for this power? Jot it down in the comments section. Start a discussion. But if you're tired of talking about the same old powers I've done before, then jump ahead of line and join my channel membership, where for only $5.99 a month, you'll be able to not only watch the complete video unedited because of YouTube's random copyright, but also future videos that you guys have requested numerous times in the comment section, but I just haven't made public yet, such as these heavy hitters. Yeah. So click now and join if you don't want to wait. If not, I'll see you guys in the next one. Deuces.